Bundy Cobb was wearing his NRA hat last week when he walked into the Douglas County Courthouse to vote, just as he's worn it other times he's voted there. But this time, a poll worker told Cobb to take it off or leave.
She said, "Your hat has NRA on it." I said, "What that got to do with anything?" She said, "It's perceived to be Republican."
The last vote had not even been counted in the recent midterm elections when the various headlines started to figuratively scream how the National Rifle Association has come out a big winner with their back candidates, or how gun safety advocates could celebrate winning big and finally putting the NRA in its place. This as another teenage victim in the Washington state shooting died of his wounds over the weekend. Nobody wants to see kids killed in schools or anyone gunned down with an illegal weapon. So why the constant battle over rights and reality? Let's welcome to MidPoint a former police officer, former political director for the National Rifle Association, now president of the Independent Firearm Owners Association, Richard Feldman, and the staff attorney for smartgunlaws.org in San Diego, California, Allison Anderman. I thank both of you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say that I am a staff attorney at the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence in San Francisco, California.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you making that correction, and our apologies for getting it wrong up front. Allison, I'm going to start with you right here. There are those people who fear that groups such as yours would love to repeal the Second Amendment, would love to, as many in the NRA say, take away our guns. What is the end game for people who basically oppose much of what the NRA stands for?
The end game for us is reducing the epidemic of gun violence in the United States. The United States stands alone as a developed country in its rates of gun violence. And we saw that in Washington this past election, that the majority of the American people want that as well. Background checks are an incredibly important tool that we have to prevent people who are dangerous from having guns. And we all agree that dangerous people shouldn't have guns. There's very little argument that felons or domestic abusers or people who are unstable should not have guns. And that is what this law does. And over 90% of the American public supports background check laws. Over 80% of gun owners support background check laws, and over 70% of NRA members support these laws as well.
All right, now I'm going to go ahead and stop you there for a moment because I want to bring Richard into this. Richard, I believe what she's talking about is in Washington State, it is Measure I-594 on the ballot. It basically indicated, and it has a strong universal background check measure that's there, and there's a feeling from some people in the NRA. Matter of fact, the Olympia newspaper in Washington quoted an unnamed NRA spokesperson who said, "We have ballot initiatives like this one across the country. That is why we are so concerned." Why would they be concerned over something like this?
Well, you have to get a little closer into the reads. It's true. Gun owners support background checks in commercial transactions, essentially where the buyer and the seller don't know each other. The Washington initiative and the concern of many gun owners is that it's going to go beyond that and affect the transfer of a firearm between people who do know each other, family members, old friends, hunting buddies. Indeed, once the law becomes effective in the state of Washington, I could be a 20-year friend of my local police chief, but I couldn't hand him a gun without violating the law and becoming a felon.
Well, let me ask this for you, Richard, if I can. About a minute left, and then we'll take a break. What's wrong with that? Other people would say, what is wrong with constant checks just to make sure if no one, and again, I'm going to speak for the other side, they'll say, if you've got nothing to hide, what's the big deal?
Well, you know, the problem and the concern is that the government is going to be able to track who owns what guns. You know, the same argument can be raised, gee, if you have nothing to hide, why would you disallow a police officer to come investigate what's inside your home? Rights aren't there to protect the guilty. Rights are there to protect the innocent. That's us, the American people. You know, this issue can be looked at in different ways, and I'm certainly willing to say, yeah, it was a very strong tide in the country that was pro-gun, but that doesn't mean that every little swirl and eddy went the way of the firearm community.
Allison, I only have about 20 seconds, and then we'll take a break. What about that? I mean, there are those who say it's a rights issue.
If you are a person who is not a felon or mentally unstable or otherwise already prohibited by law, then you will pass a background check and none of your rights are disturbed. This law is meant to ensure that people who are already prohibited from being able to possess a gun do not get access to these guns. In fact, 40% of people buy guns in a way that they are not subject to background checks, and that allows a lot of criminals to
I'm going to hold
buy
you
guns.
right there, breaking back second part of the debate, and just perhaps we'll find some middle ground right here on Midpoint.